Hello and thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to show you how I go about developing a recipe. This one is going to be for a tangy, savory spaghetti sauce. Okay, so I have two 12-ounce cans of tomato paste and four 12-ounce cans of water, which makes 72 ounces. So of course I'm going to write this down. Okay, and this is going to give me 9 cups. Why is this important? Because I'm going to be adding powdered beef broth, and I need to know how much to add because it's 1 teaspoon per cup of liquid. Right now I'm using the Firehouse Flavors beef broth mix, and it says 2 teaspoons to 1 cup of water. This is a very salty spice, and so I'm not going to do 18 teaspoons to 9 cups of liquid. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1 teaspoon at a time until the desired salt level is achieved. Something that's very important when you're developing a recipe or testing a recipe, always use the same measuring cups and spoons. They can vary slightly, so for the sake of consistency, always use the same type. Use the same ones that you always use. It's very important. If you're going to be in a commercial kitchen, you won't be able to use plastic. You'll have to use metal, okay? And it'll have to be something like stainless steel, something that can't break off into the food. But right now I'm home testing, and so going to use this. So what we ended up with here is 14 teaspoons, all right? Which is 54 grams, which is 1.9 ounces. You need to write all of your measurements down. This is going to be important when it comes to getting the nutrition label generated. Now I want to add carrot powder, and I want to add it to taste, so I'm going to add a teaspoon at a time. Something you have to really be careful about is you have to know what's on the back of the package. You have to know what's inside the package. So you have to look at the back. This is 100% carrot powder. But if it was mixed with a filler, okay, it would affect how much carrot powder I would need to use. But it hasn't been mixed with any fillers, okay? And so 1 teaspoon of this carrot powder is equivalent to 10 baby carrots, which is about 3.5 ounces of carrots, okay? So this one is pretty potent. I'm going to go with 2 teaspoons in the recipe. And it's also important to try to stay with the same supplier, or you'll have to be changing your nutrition labels a lot, because all carrot powders and, well, basically all spices, different brands, whatever, are not created equally. Celery has a very strong flavor, and so that's also going to be true with the powdered celery. Now, 1 stalk of celery is equal to 4 grams or 1 tablespoon of celery powder. Now, I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of the minced onion. I don't want to get the chopped onion. Those pieces are going to be too large. You want to get the minced onion because that is going to be evenly dispersed through the product. And it's harder to do with things that have larger chunks. So the minced onion, 2 tablespoons, 1 teaspoon of the minced garlic. Now with this phase, we're going to keep the heat on medium-low, about 3 or 4, and we're going to keep this covered because we don't want a lot of evaporation messing up the recipe, because, you know, if a lot of water evaporates, my measurements aren't going to be accurate. So you want to try to keep your recipes covered as much as possible. And the onion and garlic are dehydrated, so it's going to require some cooking, probably about 10 minutes for it to soften. And then I want to give it a test taste and see where we're at, and decide what we need to do about adding other spices. And as I said before, while you're creating the recipe that you're creating, be sure to write the measuring device, cup or spoon, the amount, also the grams and the ounces. Keep all that written down for every single spice you add. So when you're working with something like a sauce that has to be heated, you have to allow flavors time to develop, okay? Because that's going to affect the amount of the next seasoning or spice that you're going to use. So I decided that 2 tablespoons of minced onion and 1 teaspoon of minced garlic was enough after giving it a test taste, after letting this simmer on low for about 15 minutes, giving the dehydrated onion and garlic time to soften and release its flavor into the sauce. Now I'm going to work with Italian seasoning. I'm going to use Spice Barnes. I'm going to add a teaspoon. Then I'm going to put the cover back on after I stir. And I'm going to allow the flavor to develop for about 10 minutes before I consider adding any more. Because there's some very strong flavors in here. Rosemary, marjoram, I think there's even sage. So, yeah. So I want to go at this very gradually so that I don't waste a lot of groceries when I'm testing or developing recipes. So I've decided that I'm satisfied with all of the different seasonings that I have combined here. All of the flavors have pretty much blended together. And now it's time to add just a little bit of sugar. I'm not going to add a lot because that's basically what the carrot is for. The sugar just helps to balance it out just a little bit, okay? You don't have to do this with your recipe, but I do it. And like I said, I don't add a lot. And so I'm going to give this a stir, and I'm going to cover it again and come back in about 10 minutes, give it another test taste, see what it needs. I think the sauce is thick enough. I don't think I'm going to have to add cornstarch. That would be something that could be added if it needed a thickener, but I just don't think that's the case here. So you may be thinking, why add carrot powder and celery powder? I had a roommate in college, and she was from Italy, and I asked her to show me how to make a really nice spaghetti sauce or a marinara sauce, and she called it tomato gravy, okay? And so onion and celery and carrot was part of the tomato gravy. And it was sauteed, and then it was put in a blender and pulverized. And so it wasn't chunky or anything like that. She said some people do like it that way, but she liked to grind hers down really fine. And so that's why I'm using the celery and carrot powder. So I've given it another test taste, and I have found that it really doesn't need anything else. I have allowed others to test taste it. And they're saying it doesn't need anything else. And so that's important also when you're developing a recipe. You need to have other people taste your product, okay? Because you're going to be buying spices in bulk in at least 5 and 10 pound packages for each spice. And, you know, spices are right now anywhere between $8 and maybe $15 a pound, depending on what it is. Now, some spices are a lot more, obviously, like saffron. That stuff is about $200 an ounce right now. It's running neck and neck with gold. Actually, no, it's not that expensive. But anyway, so make sure that other people taste your product, and make sure you write down the ounces and the grams and the amount on the measuring device that you use for every single spice. Let the flavors develop before adding something else. You know, just add one thing, let it cook for a while, taste it, etc., and so on. The only thing I might add to this, I might add a little black pepper, maybe a teaspoon. So after it's all said and done and you have your sauce together, you're going to have to decide what is a serving size, and I've decided it's 1 cup of sauce. Okay, so I'm going to take this cup and I'm going to scoop from this pan to this pan, and I'm going to count how many cups I get. Now remember when I was talking earlier about condensation, I ended up with 7 cups Okay, and originally I think I said something about 9, but after it was all said and done, 7 cups. So when I create the nutrition facts label on Recipal, it's going to ask me how many servings per package. I'm going to put 7, and that is going to affect the nutritional facts for each individual serving. A word about density. This is where your food scale comes in, and it's very important that you have a very sensitive scale of commercial grade, okay, because a tablespoon of sugar is going to weigh a lot more than a tablespoon of this Italian seasoning. Matter of fact, before you'll even get a home scale to register something like Italian seasoning, you have to have like half a cup or something, okay, to even get it to register, say, 0.2 or 0.4 ounces or whatever. And so try to invest in the best scale that you can get, because it's going to be important as you calculate your batch for bulk spices. Like I said, 5-pound packages, 10-pound packages. So, yeah, keep that in mind. Get yourself a really good scale. Another thing that you have to record and make it a part of your permanent records is all of the pertinent information from each spice that you use. So I'm going to put the brand, that's Herbalia. The expiration is August 17th, 2025. Now, I got to looking for the lot number, and it's not anywhere on the package that I can find. It's possible that it was at the top, the part that I tore off, okay? And I can't find it. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to email them, give them the barcode, give them the expiration date, okay? And ask them to send me the lot number or any other numbers that they have associated with this product, so that I can keep an accurate record of what it is I'm using in each recipe batch. So looks like with this product, it's a McCormick product, I'm not going to have to work too hard for lot numbers and whatnot. But as you can see, there's no nutrition information on here. That's an easy problem to deal with. This is probably going to be an ingredient that is already in Recipal in their system. If it's not, what you have to do is you have to email or call the manufacturer of the spice you're using and ask them for something like known as a spec sheet, okay? And that's going to be a sheet that's going to have all your nutrition information and whatnot. And it'll also have things like moisture level in the product, level of salmonella, all of that on most spec sheets. And the reason for that is when spices come into the United States, most of them come from places like India, okay, Mexico and whatnot. They have to be treated, okay, for certain microorganisms that might not be good for you. And because of the way spices are grown, they're grown in the ground. Of course, they're going to come into contact with things like fertilizer and wildlife and whatnot. And so they have to be tested before they can be distributed to the public. They have to be tested for things like salmonella level, moisture level, and so on. And so just contact the manufacturer and ask them for the details that you need in order to maintain accurate records of your product. Okay, a word of caution about using a spice blend that's put out by, say, Spice Barn, Firehouse Flavors, Great American Spice Company. These are great companies to deal with, okay? But a problem that you might run into, you have to be careful about using pre-blended spice blends, because what can happen is they can run out and not be able to get. Let's say you want to use one of their pre-blended spice blends for ranch powder to be mixed with mayonnaise and sour cream and milk and whatever to make ranch dressing or ranch dip. and you've put time and money into packaging it, distributing it, got the public loving it, etc., and so on. And for some reason, they stop production, they're not able to get it anymore, something like that. Let's say it's a major ingredient in one of your recipes. You're not going to be able to get it anymore. Well, then you've got yourself a conundrum. So I think it's better, for the exception of this right here, because this has been a pretty consistent product with Spice Barn. It's better to do individual ingredients. Like instead of buying a chili seasoning blend, buy the Onco chili powder, buy the cumin, buy the coriander, buy each individual spice separately anytime that you can. But if it's something like Italian seasoning, those are pretty much standard across the board. You could easily switch and wouldn't notice much of a difference. But that's just a word of caution in the spice business. Be careful about pre-blended spice blends because it may not be consistent. It may not always be available. Just keep that in the back of your mind whenever you decide to use something. A lot of times everybody will be like, oh, well, you could get this powder or this chili seasoning mix or whatever, and then tweak it and add your own stuff to it and then put it out and market it. Yeah, you can, but just know that you might run into a situation where you can't get it anymore. And then you've got to come up with, some other kind of solution. But anyway, that's my advice on that. So that's my 2 cents worth about the spice business. Just a quick overview, and I appreciate you joining me. And if you have any questions, let me know. I hope you enjoyed the video. 17 minutes of your life that you'll never get back. So I really do hope that you learned something. Just drop questions below, and I'll put some information in the description box below. Thank you, and have a great day.